Hello everybody and welcome back. I am Anti-Pirate and I'm here today to talk a little bit about the 6.2 Pilot Rework. I know this video is a little bit late in coming, but I think some people are still having a hard time with the numbers on this. I mean, there's one easy thing about the numbers, is that they've made retraining pilots more expensive. That's pretty straightforward. But how much more expensive and what the best way to approach it is not quite so clear. So I made some spreadsheets. So let's have a quick look here at what I've got. So this first sheet shows us how much it costs in the new system to get a new pilot trained. You can see at the bottom that I'm making an assumption that is, on average, it's going to take you eight rolls, boom, 8. It's going to take 8 rolls to get the pilot skill you want. That may or may not be true. I think it's a decent average, right? So when you're raising up a new pilot, first you have to pay for their promotions, then you have to pay to either roll or pick their skill. The first thing I'll draw your attention to is that I have some of the cells highlighted in green. These are the ones that these are the costs that you have to pay. I can actually point at this a little bit. So these cells here, these cells here, these cells here that are highlighted in green are the costs that you have to pay to get your pilot leveled up optimally. Obviously, the actual promotion costs, those have been decreased. Those have to be paid if you're going to take your pilot up in rank. The roll costs is one of your options in terms of getting the skills you want, and then the picks costs. All of this is irrespective of tier. So if this is just going to get you the skills that you want. Now, the thing is that the tier upgrades are not dependent on the pilot rank. So if you're able to accept in the short term lower tier skills, then you can pay to upgrade the tiers as you have the gold available. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. We will get to another table in a minute that I will show you. So as you can see here, it's better to roll for your skills until you get to lieutenant rank. After that, for captain, major, and colonel, it's more cost effective to pick your skills. So that means the cumulative cost of the green highlighted squares comes to 18,750 gold for a colonel ranked pilot. So let's have a look at the next table, the next chart, not a chart, the next chunk of spreadsheet. Here we have a comparison let me see here. This is... Oops. Oh yeah, I made that too big. Let's shrink this down a little bit. This is a longer table. Okay, so here we are. So here we have a comparison of the costs of raising a new pilot in 6.2 versus raising a new pilot in 6.0, and also what it will cost to take one of your existing pilots and retrain them for a new robot. So I only filled in those numbers for a captain or for a colonel. As you can see that if you don't pay attention to tier, I shouldn't point with that, I should point with my mouse. If you don't pay attention to tier, raising up a new pilot in 6.2 is actually cheaper. But tiers will change that, of course. But just getting the skills you want is actually cheaper because the promotions themselves are cheaper. And if you re-roll a captain, if you re-pick the skills on a captain, then you're going to end up saving money. You're going to spend the same as raising a new pilot. But your skills are going to if you're picking, your skills are going to be lower tiers. So that's generally not a good choice. Retraining your pilots has gotten very expensive. That's these columns here. Retraining your pilots has gotten very expensive. I basically recommend, my rule of thumb is that above sergeant, you probably shouldn't be re-rolling pilots. If you have a pilot you plan to move to another bot, don't take them past sergeant. Once you get above sergeant, you're better off just finding a new pilot and raising them up. We can see how much cheaper the rerolls here in these yellow columns, how much the reroll and repick in 6.0 was. These things have gotten a lot more expensive, particularly for kernels. Rerolling a kernel is cost prohibitive at this point, as you can see here. So now let's talk a little bit about the tiers. Let's go on to the next chart right here. So here we have, this is not done by cumulative, this is done by individual skills. These are the cost of getting an individual skill to a certain tier. Yeah. Now, these all don't give you complete information because you can roll to get you skill you want and then like finish upgrading it. But if you just go from scratch, from not having a skill to picking a tier 4 skill, that's going to cost you 4,500 gold. It's cheaper, as we can see right here. Oh, here we are. Cheaper in this column, we can see, or this column, we can see that it's actually cheaper to just roll and try to get a tier 4 skill. But either of those are pretty expensive. And depending on the skill, tier 4 is not that much better than tier 3. So my recommendation here is that for private, corporal, and sergeant, that you roll your skills randomly and try to get something that you find acceptable. Usually that won't be tier 4. If you're lucky, you might get some tier 4. That's the small upside of the system. Also, the probabilities here, as you can see at the bottom, are based on numbers that I derived from the test server by just randomly rolling skills. And if they've changed those numbers, this table is actually completely wrong, but I don't have any reason to believe that they would have done that. That means you only have about 11% chance per roll of getting a tier 4 skill. I personally have gotten quite lucky with these. But then see, once you get past sergeant, you're much better off you start to get better off picking your skills than rolling them. But again, getting tier 3 and 4 skills is still very expensive. So we go back to the first table. So for the first up to sergeant, you can roll and try to get like a tier 3 or at least a tier 2 skill. Once you get to lieutenant, you want to roll to get a skill that you want, but you don't want to roll to make sure that the tier is high. Once you've got a skill that you want, just be like, I'm going to deal with that. The tier of that skill later, right? And then once you get to captain, major, and colonel, you're actually just better off picking your skills. If you have a broad enough range of skills that you think would be acceptable, if there's only a couple skills, it may be temporarily worth making a couple rolls to get a skill that's like, I can live with that for a while, and then pay later to pick the skill and then upgrade its tier. And that's pretty much my sum of it. There's no question that across the board, this has raised the cost of retraining pilots, and you just don't want to retrain your pilots as much. Obviously, the legendary pilots, I've spent a lot of time preparing legendary pilots for this. So I've got my tier 3 skills, largely because, 1, luck, and 2, I had a lot of these tier 3 skills before the rework. This pilot was actually, other than the one skill here, actually make myself smaller here. Other than the one skill here, Master Gunsmith, all of these skills were completely set in place before the rework. And you get other little things here, like I've picked the skill Death Survivor, and it does not get any better when you tier it up. So I paid the flat cost, got Death Survivor, it's done. That's what I did here. And I also got lucky with Invulnerable Raider. I've been having some fun with that. So hopefully you get lucky on your rolls, but for the most part, you got to be careful. If you have a bot that you do not think is going to stay in your hangar, don't invest very much in a pilot for that bot. Because if you only take the pilot up to Sergeant, you can re-roll that pilot for a modest cost. But if you take them higher than that, the cost of re-rolling them when you get rid of that bot, it's just going to be too high. Here's another pilot that I've been working on since the update. You can see that I rolled Armor Expert, but it only came in at tier 2. But I've already got him up to Sergeant rank. So I actually consider re-rolling that Armor Expert to see if I can get a tier 3 suit, because he's only a Sergeant. But I can wait. As long as I do it before I promote him to the next rank, I can just kind of wait and do that whenever I want. Honestly, there's not a whole lot of skills that I want left, only really Mechanic. But I guess because I don't have Mechanic, I may actually stick with that. But anyways, so these are just some examples. The key is roll at low levels, pick at high levels, do not promote pilots that are not on a bot that is basically a dream hangar bot for you. And get those legendaries. They're pretty worth it. They're pretty much worth it for most part. I mean, Adrian is incredibly worth it, but again, don't train him up on a bot that you don't plan on keep on using. And if you're winning legendaries from event chests and you don't have the bots that you need them for, again, get them up to Sergeant on whatever bot you're using. They give you the option of getting tier 4 skills, particularly if it's a legendary for a bot that you eventually plan on getting. Then you can spend a little bit to retrain that Sergeant and then take him or her to a much higher rank after that. That's just my thoughts. If you guys have anything you want to add, drop a comment down below. And if you like this explanation at all, you can be a helpful mender. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon. I'm going to be coming out with some more guides in the near future. So there you go. That's it. May you all have good rolls on your random pilot skills, as good as me, or even better than me. I would wish that on all of you, because, well, honestly, I think Pixonic needs to change this. I think this costs too much. It's too much. So good luck on your rolls. May you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whatever time it is where you are. I am Anti-Pirate, and for now, I am signing off.